Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Ready to get into something kind of interesting today?
Always.
Okay, so think about this. What if finance didn't have any, accounting standards,
Oh, wow.
right? Or what if healthcare, had no medical
Yeah,
protocols?
chaos.
Total chaos, right? Well, that's kind of what some experts are saying is happening in HR.
Really?
And we're gonna take a deep dive into this today. We've got this really interesting article from Sylvia Ola.
Okay.
It's called HR Needs Standards, Not More Surveys or Reiki Healers.
Okay.
And it's from the Strengths Company. So is HR really the Wild West out there? Let's find out.
Yeah, that framing of the problem, it's pretty fascinating. It really does highlight this fundamental issue. It's not just, that there are problems in HR. It's that the lack of standardized practices might be holding the whole field back.
That's a really good point. And it's weird. It's like we trust that a bridge is built to code, that our doctors follow, established procedures. But when it comes to managing people, which is arguably one of the most valuable assets in a company,
Yeah.
we're just winging it.
It's wild, and it's interesting, what this article brings up is this whole focus on trends in HR. There's an obsession with what's new and shiny Reiki healers, endless employee surveys, all these feel-good initiatives. But are they addressing the core issues?
Right, yeah. It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. And speaking of foundations, or the lack thereof, this article goes in on, HR's love affair with surveys.
Uh-huh.
They gather all this data, they pinpoint problems, and then what?
Right.
It seems like action rarely follows.
Yeah, it's like having a map but refusing to follow the directions. You can see where you want to go, but without a structured approach, you're never going to get there. That's where standards come in. And that's the core argument here, is that clear HR standards, like
Okay.
in other professional fields, like we rely on in other areas, could unlock HR's full potential.
So instead of chasing the latest trends, maybe HR should focus on building a solid framework, a set of best practices that can apply across the board.
Right, from hiring and onboarding all the way to performance management, even offboarding.
Yeah. And I mean, without those standards, HR is bound to struggle with inconsistencies, right?
Absolutely.
It's harder to measure success, and ultimately, I think it limits their ability to have a real impact.
Yeah, and they end up just reacting to problems instead of proactively preventing them.
Totally. It's firefighting rather than fireproofing.
Yes.
And this is where this company, the Strengths Company, comes in. Sylvia Ola's company. Their whole approach is about standardizing the employee life cycle.
Yeah.
So, moving beyond trends to build a more effective HR system.
And that's not just about making HR's job easier. This is about a more stable and successful environment for everyone in the company.
Right, because when you have that kind of standardized approach to managing people, you create a more consistent, fair, and ultimately more productive work environment.
Absolutely. It benefits everyone.
Yeah. It's really interesting to think about how this impacts, everybody's day-to-day experience in a company.
And it's really important to remember that standards aren't about stifling creativity or anything like that.
Oh.
It's actually the opposite. Think of it as it's providing that solid foundation on which you can actually build a really thriving and innovative workplace culture.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's not about limiting people. It's about setting everyone up for success, giving people that structure and support they need to thrive.
Exactly. And that's where the Strengths Company gets exciting, because they focus on that whole employee life cycle, building this holistic system that supports people at every stage of their journey.
So it's not just a few isolated practices here and there. It's about a really comprehensive approach, one that really prioritizes consistency and clarity.
That's right. It's about recognizing that each stage of an employee's journey is interconnected, and a standardized approach ensures a seamless and positive experience throughout.
I could see how this could really change the game for HR,
Yeah.
moving away from that reactive firefighting mode,
Yeah.
stepping into, a more strategic and proactive role.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective is essential for HR to actually reach its potential, be a driver of organizational success.
This is making me rethink all my past experiences with HR. I kind of want to dive deeper into the specifics of how these standards could actually play out. What would that look like in practice?
Well, imagine, for example, hiring new employees.
Okay.
Involves this standardized process.
So more than just using the same job application.
Yes. Standardized job descriptions that clearly lay out the roles and responsibilities, a consistent interview process, to make sure it's fair, even standardized onboarding procedures to get the new hires up to speed quickly.
Okay, so we're taking out the guesswork, the inconsistencies that can happen when things are left up to, each person's own way of doing things.
Exactly. It's establishing a system that's clear, it's transparent, and it benefits both the company and the employees.
And this wouldn't just be about efficiency, right? It would also create a sense of fairness and transparency for employees. So they know what's expected of them, and they know how their performance will be measured.
Absolutely. And when people understand those standards, they feel more confident and empowered in their roles. It just creates a more trusting and respectful environment.
I can see how this could really contribute to a positive workplace culture, like creating a level playing field and reducing the potential for, bias or favoritism.
Yeah, and don't forget the impact on engagement. When people feel like they're part of a system, they're more motivated and committed to their work.
That's a great point. It's not just about, HR ticking boxes and following rules. It's about creating this environment where employees can really thrive and contribute their best. This makes me think about those Reiki healer initiatives that Ola mentioned.
Yeah, that's where that criticism becomes so relevant.
Wow.
While those kinds of initiatives might have a place, they're not addressing the root of the problem.
Right.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
Yeah, you got to set the bone first. You can't just cover it up and hope for the best. You need that solid foundation.
Exactly. The power of standards is that they provide that essential framework for a healthy, thriving organization, like building a house. You need that solid foundation before you can start worrying about the decor.
Okay, so I'm sold on the idea of standards, but let's be realistic. Implementing these across a whole organization, that's a big deal. There's going to be pushback.
Of course, change is never easy, but that's where strong leadership comes in. It's about clearly communicating the benefits, getting buy-in from, the key people, and providing training and support.
And recognizing that this is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time fix. These standards will have to be reviewed, maybe updated, adapted as the organization changes.
Yeah, and that's where data comes in. All those surveys that HR loves, they can be useful for measuring how effective these standards are and finding areas to improve. It's not about ditching the surveys, it's about using them in a smart way.
So using that data to inform, the development and implementation of these standards, moving beyond surface level insights and using the info to create a really impactful HR strategy.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to the point of this whole article. HR needs to move beyond trends and embrace standards, create a more structured, consistent, and ultimately more effective approach to managing people.
It's about recognizing that HR isn't just a nice to have. It's critical to an organization's success.
And it's about time we start treating it that way.
So we talked a lot about the why of HR standards,
Yeah.
but what about the how? How can organizations actually do this?
Well, there are a bunch of resources out there, including the Strengths Company, and they specialize in helping companies do just that, standardize their HR processes.
That makes sense. But even before bringing in outside help, are there steps organizations can take themselves to get started?
Absolutely. It starts with taking a good look at their current practices. Where are the gaps? Where are the inconsistencies? What needs standardizing the most?
That's a great first step. Once you've figured out what needs attention, you can develop a plan for implementing those standards, set timelines, assign responsibilities, things like that.
And this is crucial. Involve your employees in the process. Get their input, their feedback, make sure they're on board. After all, these standards are meant to support them.
That makes sense. If people don't understand or accept them, they won't be effective.
Exactly. It has to be collaborative. And remember, this is a journey.
Yeah, there will be bumps in the road.
Adjustments, lessons learned.
But the goal is worth it. A more structured, consistent, and ultimately more human-centered approach to HR.
I love that.
I think this has been super insightful. We've covered a lot, but I want to explore even more about the practical steps involved in implementing these standards.
Sure. It can seem overwhelming, but you don't have to start from scratch.
Oh, good.
There are frameworks and models that can help get you started.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's the SHRM Body of Competency and Knowledge, for example.
Okay.
It lays out the core competencies and knowledge areas for HR professionals.
So it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about taking what already exists and making it work for your company.
Exactly. And there are organizations we mentioned the Strengths Company. They can guide you through developing and implementing standards that fit your specific context.
It sounds like finding the right partners is key to making this whole transition smoother.
For sure. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
What works for one company might not work for another. The key is to find what works best for your organization, your industry, and your specific needs.
So it's about finding that balance, using existing frameworks but making them your own,
Exactly.
being flexible and adaptable, which is something we talk about a lot on this show.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, okay.
Try things out, iterate as you go. This is a learning process. It's okay to adjust along the way.
Be open to feedback, course correct, recognize that this is an ongoing process.
Exactly. The important thing is that you're taking those steps, moving away from that Wild West mentality that we're talking about,
Yeah.
towards a more structured and standardized approach.
Bringing HR into the modern era
Yeah.
and giving it the structure it needs to thrive.
And that shift in perspective is, so crucial for HR to be that driver of organizational success.
Let's go back to where we started.
Okay.
Is HR really lagging behind?
Well, based on this article and what Ola says, it's tough to say no.
Yeah.
The lack of standards is a real issue, and it needs to be addressed if HR wants to be seen as a strategic function in organizations.
But the good news is people are starting to realize this, and there are solutions out there. It's not impossible to fix.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's up to HR professionals to lead the way.
Right.
They need to embrace standards, advocate for them, show how valuable they can be.
It's about changing how people see HR. Not just administrative, but a real strategic partner that helps a company succeed.
It's time to ditch the trends and focus on building that solid foundation for a truly thriving workplace.
So for our listeners out there, think about your own experiences.
Yeah.
Have you been in situations where clear HR standards would have made a difference?
Maybe in the hiring process, performance reviews, even everyday interactions at work.
We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to check out the full article by Sylvia Ola.
Yeah, great article.
The link is in the description. And hey, if you like these deep dives into these interesting topics, make sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to uncover.
We do.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just, the tip of the iceberg when it comes to creating a truly effective and fulfilling workplace.
Absolutely. So much to explore and discuss.
It's about, challenging the status quo, asking those tough questions, and pushing for change.
We're all in this together, right?
We are.
We can learn from each other. So keep those comments coming, and let's keep talking about this.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep diving deep.